Hey everybody, this is Jamie Cross for GameDevTouchPlus.com. I'm a graphic designer and an indie game developer, and I also teach game development using GameSalad at Udemy and Skillshare.com. This is the third episode in the Building a Platformer Game Using GameSalad, and we're going to cover a lot of ground in this third episode. We're going to completely finish the entire first level by adding the few remaining actor elements that it needs. We're going to add the bubbles to the toxic waste. We're going to add the mean droid towards the end. And we're also going to add the full UI so the player can see their health, their score, and whether or not they have the key. We're going to move on to the second and third levels by looking at their level geometry. I'm going to show you how to make your own levels by using the first level as a template. And in that second level, we're going to start that by adding all the additional pickups that can be used throughout the rest of the game. So let's get started. I'll add the particle effects first. Scroll over to the lava, or the toxic waste, Drag one of these in here. I'm going to reduce it down, and you can place it anywhere. It doesn't really matter where you place it. I'm going to put 2 in here. So I'm going to hold down Option, drag that over there. And I want to add 1 or 2 to the toxic waste over here as well. Again, just to give the game a little variety, give the player something different to see as he moves around and plays the game. So I'm going to add a couple in here. Maybe put 1 up higher, 1 down lower, so they seem like they're coming out of different spots. However you want to make your level, that's certainly up to you. Let's put our mean droid in. I'm going to want the mean droid right down here. And remember, we have to give him a speed and a minimum and maximum location on screen. I'm going to drag him over right here and find his minimum location. That position is, I'll say 1,660. So my min is going to be 1,660. Let's drag him over to his maximum position. See what that's going to be. Right about there. Check that. Oops, not the size, the position. So we'll say 2,360 for that one. 2,360. I'm going to set his speed to be 175. And what I found out through play testing this, the speed of this droid, along with the jumping function of the main player, the height at which the player jumps, and the speed at which the player, or the speed at which the droid moves, that 175 is a good medium speed for the droid. It's not really difficult for the player to jump over it. So that's kind of what you want for your first level. You don't want your first level to be too difficult. You just want to introduce these elements, and I really don't want my player to die at all on the first level unless they actually try to. I want them to get introduced to these elements, maybe get hurt if they miss their first jump for some reason, or if they miss a jump here and maybe get hit by the droid. But I want them to be able to complete the level easy enough that they're interested and want to move on to the second level. I certainly don't want them to get too frustrated on the first level. So, like I said, through playtesting, I found out that a speed of 175 for this droid is a nice, fairly easy jump for the player to make. Now, for that end of level trigger I mentioned after the door, we're going to have to create a new actor for that. So let's do that. I'm going to add a new actor and just call it end level trigger. And like these particles right here, I'm going to give it a color. I'm going to make it greenish. I'm going to change its alpha to 0.5. And again, just like the particle effects, I'm going to change that alpha when the game actually runs. So I'm going to change end of level, color, alpha to 0. So you only see it as the developer, you won't see it as the player. I'm going to put this in place right after the door, and it's really It's just an actor that when the player is going to touch it, the game is going to know to end level, whatever level you're on, and move on to the next level. So I'm just going to put it there. There's no way the player is going to miss it. It fills the hallway and it's really long. Now that we've added the two new elements, the mean droid and the end level trigger, those are set up in the game and ready to go. But if the player were to interact with those, the player actor is not going to know what to do yet. Nothing would happen. Say when the player touches the enemy robot, we want this player to take some damage. And when the player touches the end of level trigger, the game needs to go to the next level. So to do that, we need to make some edits to this player character. Let's close up some of these behaviors. So I'm going to create a new group. I'm going to call that group Interact with Enemies. And in this group, I'm going to put a bunch of different enemy interactions, but the first one we're going to use right now is the interaction for that evil droid or the mean droid that we just built. So I'm going to start that by creating a new rule. I'm just going to drag that into the group. So now it's, if I close up Interact with Enemies, it's hidden away. So in this rule, I'm going to call that Bad Robot. Then I want to set up when the actor overlaps or collides, and I could do with actor of type mean droid, but I actually want to set up a new tag for this. I don't want it to be solid, I want to set up a new one. And this new one I'm going to call bad, and it's going to encompass a lot of the different bad guys. So I'm going to go home to the Actors tab, make a new tag, just call it bad, and I'm going to drag this mean droid into it right now. And right now, that's going to be the only one in bad. Let's go back to our scene and back to the actor where we started from. I'm going to say when this actor overlaps or collides with anything flagged as bad, I just want a couple different things to happen. Then I want to play a sound. So I'm going to drag in the play sound behavior. And the sound we want to play is bang. And this bang sound is going to be played by a couple different enemies. So I want the volume to change slightly, just so they sound a little bit different from one enemy to the next. So I'm going to turn the volume on this bad robot down to 0.4. So I can close up that play sound. And then I just want a couple other things to happen. I want you to lose some health. So we're going to drag in a change attribute. I'm going to change the attribute game health to the same attribute game health minus 25. So that'll take 25 points away from your health whenever you hit the bad robot. And then I also want this character to flash red, so it visually looks like it's taking some damage. So we're going to use another change attribute for that. And what I want to do is take the player's color in the green value. I want to set that to 0. And what that'll do is it will turn this character red when I take all the green out of it. And then in this otherwise behavior, I want to drag this same change attribute down, the self color green, and I want to set that back to 1. So when you're not hitting the enemy robot, you'll turn back to your normal color. So when you get hit, you're going to flash red right here, you're going to lose health, and it's going to play a sound. So now I'm going to close this Interact with Enemies. And I want to make another new group, and this group is going to handle when the player touches that end of level trigger we set up. I'm going to create another group. I'm just going to call it end of level. And I'm going to need to add another rule to this. So I'm going to create a rule. Again, drag that up into that group, just like I did with the Interact with Enemies. I'm going to call this Reach End of Level. And this is going to be when the actor actually touches that trigger. These events are going to happen. So when this actor overlaps or collides with the end of level trigger, and I'm going to leave that actor of type end of level trigger. When that happens, I want this actor to fade away and disappear. so it will fade to transparent. I'm going to use an interpolate behavior for that. Right here. And I want to interpolate this character's color alpha to 0. I want it to go fast, but not too fast, so I'm going to make it take 2 seconds for the duration. I need to add another behavior underneath this interpolate, so I'm going to drag the change attribute behavior in here. Scroll down so we can see that. And what I'm going to change is the player's level complete to true. And this level complete attribute in the player that we had set up right here, that's going to tell the next rule to go ahead and go to the next level. After you fade it away and this becomes true, then you're going to go to the next level. So let me close this one up so we can see what we're doing. I'm going to add a new rule, drag that in underneath this one. I'm going to call that go to next level. And then we need to add a couple conditions here and a couple attribute changes, and that will take you to the next level. So the first thing I want to check for is to make sure that the player has completely faded away with this interpolate that we added in here. So when the player's color alpha equals 0 and the player level complete is true, then these new behaviors can happen. And what these behaviors are going to do, let me drag in a change attribute. The first one I'm going to change is the game level, the health variable that we have set up. I want you to start the next level at full health. So I'm going to reset that to 100 after you finish this level and before the next one starts. So that's resetting a variable. I'm going to reset another one here with another change attribute, and this is a self attribute for the player. I want to change the player's number of jumps back to 1, and we haven't added it yet, but when we do add it, the double jump, this will take the double jump away. If you have double jump, let's say on level 1, and you finish level 1, this will essentially take your double jump away, turn it back to a single jump for level 2. So you would have to get that pickup again in order to have a double jump over again. I need another change attribute. What I want to change now, because you're moving on to the next level, I want to change level complete back to false. And then we actually want to move on to the next level. And the way we're going to do that is with the change scene behavior. I'm just going to drag that in at the bottom. And then all we want to do is go to next scene, just like it says. And that should set up the end of level and the robot. So let's give this a test and see how it looks. So let's run over this way and see what happens. I'm just going to run through this quickly so I can get to the robot and to the end of level trigger there pretty quickly. Now I got hit, I flashed red, and I'm sure you can hear that noise. The explosion or boom sound is happening. Let me get the key and we'll check that end of level trigger. So there I fade out, and then because there is no second level yet, it starts the first level over again. But I did fade out and it went to the beginning of the first level. So both of those are working. I did, however, notice a couple things. I noticed this right here. This is kind of bugging me, seeing this wall here. So I want to add a second row of these panels. And I also didn't hear the noise for the robot that we set up. So I want to check that out and see what might not be working there. First, let's just drag this over. This will be quick and painless. I'm going to drag a second row of these. That looks good. So let's check out that droid and see what might be up with its sound. The play my sound is set to play the robot sound. That's right. In the distance from player, let me check this formula here. I see I do need an extra set of parens. I need a set of parens around the self position X minus game player X. And then also a set around the Y attributes. But this also reminds me, in the player we haven't yet set it up to keep track of its player X and player Y. So let's do that, and then I'm sure this sound will be working correctly. Let's go into the player. I'm going to make another new group. I want to put this at the very top so it does this the first thing before it does anything else. I want it to keep track of the player's X and Y location. And I just need to do 2 constrain attributes in here. Let me drag the first one in. And the constrain attribute constantly updates one attribute to another. So I want to constantly update the game player X to this player's position X. I'm going to make a copy of this and also keep track of the game player Y to this actor's position Y. So while you're playing the game, it'll constantly make sure that player X equals position X and player Y equals position Y. So let's just play this again, and I think that should work fine. I like this second row of panels here. It definitely looks better than that wall that was sitting outside there. Let me get to that robot quickly. There we go. I'll let it hit me. You can hear the sound play before it hits me. Now, to finish this off and actually be completely done with level 1, we just need to add our interface elements up here. So let's do that, and then level 1 will be totally complete, and we'll have a nice starting shell for levels 2 and 3. Then we're going to need to add a few new actors to build the interface. So I'm going to go back here to the Actors Inspector, add our first one. I'm going to call this Tint Bar. And this is really just going to be a black bar. I'm going to drag the color to black. And I want it to be semi-transparent. So I'm going to make the alpha 0.5. And I also want to turn off all those physics I always shut off. There's no reason to have the game engine track this. So I'm going to turn all that off. It doesn't need to be movable. Let's add another actor. And I'm going to call this Score Display. What we want to do in here is I want to change this actual actor's color to nothing. I want it to be completely transparent. I'm also going to turn off the physics for this. Let's get that out of the way first. This is just going to be a text readout. It's going to say the word score, and then I want it to display the value of our score after the word. So to do that, I want to drag in a display text behavior. And in the expression editor, in quotes, so it's a double quotes, I'm going to put score, colon. Then if you hold down Option or Alt on a Windows machine and press space, you'll get a space within the score readout on screen. If you don't hold down that Option or Alt key, you won't actually get the space because it's actually a control character. You just can't see it. It still shows it as a space here in the expression editor. Then another quotes. And what I want to do is add the value of the score attribute to the display. So to do that in GameSalad, you put 2 periods. That will concatenate the word score with the value of the next variable we're going to put in here. And what I'm going to do is add game score to that. So now this will on screen say score and then display the number of our score. I just want to change the font of this to Helvetica, size 20. I'm going to leave it white. You could change the color here if you wanted to, but I'm going to leave that white. I'm going to make a copy of this score display. So I'm holding down Option and dragging. I'm going to change the name to health display. I can go back in here and just make a couple edits and this one will be done. So I'm going to change the word score to health. I'm going to get rid of game score. I'm going to select it and delete it. And then go back to game and add health. So now this one will read health and then the value of whatever your health attribute is. Now we need one more of these. So I'm going to copy this again. I'm going to call it key display. In this one, there's no variable to read out right here. So I'm going to take that out, and I'm going to take the 2 periods out, but I need to update the word health to the word key for it to be correct. So let's do that. Now there's one more actor to add to get this all to work right. And what I'm going to do is in the images, there is this actor called dot. I want to drag that in here. Now let's double click this dot, and I want this to be red. So I'm just going to make green 0 and blue 0. So the dot's going to start out as red. Then I want to turn off the physics on this as well. Let's go back and let's get these placed on screen. Now because I want these actors placed on screen as a user interface, I don't want them to scroll like all the rest of the elements on screen. I always want those, of course, to be on screen all the time. You don't want your health and your score and any other indicators or interface elements to scroll away when you're moving around on screen. So to do that in GameSalad, I need to go under the scene menu into layers, and I need to make a new layer. I'm going to call this layer, I'm going to drag it above background. I'm going to call this new layer UI for user interface. And the key to it not scrolling like everything else is to turn scrollable off. So after I place these elements on screen, they will not scroll around like everything else does. So now let's go back to game and get these actors and let's get them placed on screen, and I'll show you how that's going to work. I'm going to place the element for the black bar right here. I'm just going to drag that into place. You could be real specific with numerical measurements if you so desire, but I'm happy with just dragging it on. And another key element to building this user interface, you see this white rectangle on screen. Remember, that's the original stage we started with. That's the original spot of the camera in GameSalad. So when you're building a user interface that you don't want to scroll, you absolutely have to build it within the confines of whatever your stage is. For example, if I were to build my interface over here, outside of the main stage, you would never see it. You would never get to it in the game. So you want to make sure you build that actually in your stage area, or else it won't work and you'll wonder why the heck it's not working. So that's our tint bar, and I really just put that so you could read the text. So I want the score to display first. And because I made the actual actor transparent, once it's placed on screen, you don't see it, but you will see the text that's in it once we start to play the game. So I'm just going to put that there for now. We'll see how these look when we play the game as a test. See if I need to move them around at all. I'm just going to kind of place them somewhere, anywhere on screen right now, just to get a feel for it. Drag the key display in here. Put that right about there. And the actual key light, I guess you could call it, it's going to be red when you don't have the key, and then when you do pick up the key, it turns green. So that's just a little indicator. We haven't added the behaviors yet to turn this green, and we'll do that next after we get a look at how this looks. Just for good measure, you want to check and make sure these new elements I just placed are actually on the correct layer. For example, dot could be within background, And if it was, it would scroll around and nothing else would. I'm going to drag that back up here where it belongs. Everything's in UI and it's not scrollable. So we should be good to go. Let's take a look. Now you can see our UI up here. I have a little flash of color coming through there. I'll fix that. But you can see score is displaying, certainly starts out at 0. Health is displaying, that starts out at 100. And the key is displaying with the red dot next to it. You can see when I move around, they don't. So they stay on screen all the time, just like they're supposed to. I'm going to let that robot hit me, just to make sure that my health is getting reduced as it should. And it did. There it goes, down to 75. So that's good. Now I could pick up the key over here, but this isn't going to turn green yet. So let's fix that. I'm going to take this gray bar, move it up just 1 pixel so we don't get that little flash of color above it. Let's add the behaviors to control this dot. It's just going to be one rule, so I'm going to create a rule. And it's going to check for when the attribute, game, key is true, then it's going to change the color of this to green. We're going to do that with a change behavior, a couple of change behaviors really, change attributes I mean. I want to change the dot's color, red, to 0. And then I want to change the dot's color, green, to 1. So once you pick up the key, the dot's going to turn green. And then if you don't have the key, I just want to make sure that this stays red. So we're going to say in the otherwise section of this, we're going to say otherwise. I'm going to copy that. Otherwise, turn red to 1 and green to 0. Now let's test that out again and pick up the key, and the dot should turn green when we pick it up. Alright, let's get that key before I die. There we go. I got 100 points for picking up the key, and the key light turned green. Now that's going to be it for level 1. That's really all we need to do for this. There's still certainly some finessing we could do. The player needs some jumping sounds and whatnot. But as we move through level 2 and level 3 and add some other new elements, this will get flushed out, and any changes we make to the player for level 2 and level 3, or even if you took it further and made levels 4 and 5, as long as you make changes to the player, those changes will also be reflected in level 1. So when we add elements, for example, a jumping sound later on in level 2 or 3, we'll still get that jumping sound in level 1. Now what I'm going to do for level 2 and 3 in this tutorial is start you with shell levels. And what I mean by that is, let me show you. I've already added a scene called level 2 and a scene called level 3 here. And these new scenes, right now they only contain elements we've already built for level 1. So they contain the same background, has the same behaviors for the parallax scrolling. They contain the base floors, the base player, the base mean droid, with all of the same behaviors that we just built for level 1. The reason I've started this with these shell levels is because they're much larger and much more detailed than level 1. And let me just scroll through it here quickly for you while I'm talking. And you can see there's a lot more passageways, there's a lot more detail, a lot of different things going on here that would take a really long time to build in the video while you're watching. So since we've built these things already, I've just arranged them in a different manner from level 1, which is exactly what you would do to make a new level in your game. There's nothing new in these shells yet. What we're going to do is add the new elements through the rest of this tutorial. Let me run you through scene 3 real quickly so you can see it's also quite a bit larger than level 1. There's a lot more elements to these And there's definitely going to be a lot more elements we add as we go through this tutorial. But I didn't want to have you sit here and watch me build each and every block of this, because I think that would probably just take up too much time. And like I said, in the files that you download, there's going to be the completed game and also an empty game to start with. So you'll have all of this already. But when it comes time to actually make your own scenes, what you would want to do is, for example, take level 1 or any of these other finished levels when you're done, make a copy of it, just drag it over here. Let's say I wanted a level 4. Of course, rename it to level 4. And then when you go into it, you have all of this stuff set up already. You have your interface already set up where it should be. You'll have scrolling backgrounds already in place. You'll have a bunch of platforms, which you'll probably end up really deleting most of those. Maybe you don't want that there. Maybe you want your robot someplace else. But at the very least, you would start with your interface and your scrolling backgrounds and then go from there. And that's exactly what I did for levels 2 and 3. So let me delete this level 4. And let's get into level 2. And let's start adding some of the new elements here. And we'll go through and place those, and I'll explain to you all the new stuff. The first new additions you're going to see on level 2 are the addition of some pickups. Some pickups for health, for score, and for double jumping. So let's go ahead and get those added. And they're going to be new actors. So down here in your images, you'll see there's images for the pickups. There's a health pickup, the score pickup, and the double jump pickup. So I'm going to select all of those. Just drag them up here all at once. And it makes 3 new actors for us. Pickup, health, score, and jump. Nice and simple. A lot of the functionality is going to be handled by the player, but the behaviors that are in these 3 pickups are all going to be identical. So let's set up the health first. And all it is going to be, it's going to be a rule that says when the player touches this, that we want it to be destroyed. So it looks like the player picked it up. So I set up a rule that says when this actor overlaps or collides with the player, we just want to destroy this actor, that's all. So drag a destroy behavior in there. I'm going to copy this and go back to the other 2 pickups, paste it into the score. I'm going to paste that exact same thing into the double jump. Now let me put one of those on screen. Let's put a health pickup right over here. Now when I play level 2, the robot's already there because he was set up in level 1. We learned that he's already animated, and we learned how to set up your minimum and maximum distances for it to patrol back and forth. On level 1, it's exactly the same procedure for any place else you want it. In level 2, level 3, level 100, however many levels you would make for your game, you just follow the same procedure. Notice that pickup is not there, and I'll show you why. In the scene layers, I had been on our HUD layer from setting up the HUD last time, and I changed the name of that from user interface to HUD, but I accidentally put the pickup on there. You want that on your background. Let's close that up and try that again. There, you can see the pickup over there already. Now when I pick it up, of course it disappeared because I put that destroy behavior on it, but I didn't get any extra health. So let's actually set the functionality of these behaviors, or these pickups, up. Like I said, all the functionality of those pickups is actually going to be handled inside the player actor. So let's go in there. I'm going to add a new group. I'm going to call that pickups. While we're working on this, I'm going to drag it up to the top of the screen so we have lots of screen real estate, or I'm not locked into the bottom down there. I'm going to make a new rule. I'm going to drag that up into this group, And this is going to be for the health pickup. So I'm going to call it health. And when the actor overlaps or collides with the actor of type, pick up health. First thing we want it to do is play a sound. I want it to play the sound, pick up health, and then we just need to change a couple attributes to finish this off. First, I want to change the attribute game health to game health plus 25. So when you pick up this pickup, you're going to get 25 points added to your health. And then I also want to add some points to the score. So we'll go back to game, score, and we'll update this one also to be game, score, and I want to add 50 points to your health when you get that, or 50 points to your score when you pick up the health pickup. So that's it. That will make the health pickup work. Now to do the score pickup, I'm going to make a copy of the health pickup. I'm going to update it, of course, to say score. Update this to say pickup score. So now it's going to make this adjustment when the player touches the score pickup. I want to play the sound, just pickup. That's a general pickup sound. We can delete this health change attribute because we're not updating the health with the score pickup. We're just going to update the score. And I want to lower the value that you get for that a little bit because I'm thinking I'll be placing a lot of score pickups on screen to give the player something to chase around and add to their score. So I don't want them adding too much too quickly. So I'm going to reduce that to 25. Now that's it for the score pickup. Now let's do the double jump pickup. Again, I'm going to copy the score pickup to start with. I'm going to call it double jump. So when the player overlaps or collides with pickup jump, we want to play the sound, pick up double jump, and then we need to change a few more attributes. I'm going to change the score, and I'm going to leave that to update the score by 25 points as well. So I'm going to leave this one alone. I'm going to copy that, and I want to change the attribute player jumps. I'm going to click remove expression to take all this stuff out of here. And then just type in 2 right there. So that's going to give you 2 jumps after you pick up the double jump pickup. We would need to change one more thing. We need to change player jump count to player jumps. So what we're doing here first, we're setting the player's jumps to 2, and then we're changing the jump count to the value that we just set up to self jumps, which is 2. So let's test these 3 pickups out before we get ahead of ourselves. Let's make sure they all work. I'm going to go back to the level 2 here. So we already have the score there that we placed earlier. Let me make sure I'm on the right layer first before I do that again. So I'm going to highlight the background layer. Now let's place, oh, not the score, the health, and then the double jump. And give that a test. So the score played its sound and gave me 25 points. The health played its sound, gave me health, and gave me score. Now the double jump played its sound, gave me some score. Let's see if I can double jump. I'm going to press the space bar twice now. And I do now have a double jump. So they're all working properly. So now that I know these are working, let's get rid of these. And we'll get them placed in the level where they need to be to make things working right. So right here, I want to place a health. Because this is really the player's only second time they're going to see an enemy, and it's a lot closer space. The chances are pretty good the player's going to take some damage, and I don't want them to be really low on damage very beginning of level 2, but I do want to wake them up, I guess, and let them know that this level is going to be more dangerous than the first. So in order to be a little bit nice, I'm going to give them another health right here after they probably get hit there. Just put it right there. Scroll over. I want to add some points here. I'm going to put just a score pickup right there. Just place it right there on the ground. That'll give the player an opportunity to get some points if they want to risk it. Now, it's certainly not required to get the score. The player is going to drop down here and they can decide if that enemy happens to be over here, maybe they don't want to go for the score. Maybe they just rather run over here and be safe. So that's optional, but if the player's up for the challenge, they can get over there and get it. Another thing I've done here, take notice of this. There's this toxic waste area right here, and when I play this, you'll see that's going to be off screen. You're not actually going to see the toxic waste. So what I did was I put some of those bubbles in here, and those bubbles will rise up out of this hole. So by now, after the first level, when the players saw the lava and the bubbles, they should hopefully realize not to drop down this pit or they're going to die. And if they don't realize that, they'll certainly figure it out at that moment. I'm going to scroll down here and add just another score pickup right here. Let me scroll over. Now what's going to happen here? Obviously, the player is not going to be able to jump to get across this huge gap. One of the new elements we're going to add in this level is a moving platform that's going to kind of be an elevator that just moves back and forth between these two pillars. And then the player will be able to ride that from the left side over to the right. Or of course they could ride back from the right to the left as well. Also, right here at the end of this hallway, I'm going to add another health pickup. The reason I'm adding that there's a couple reasons. One, when the player gets to this edge and falls, if they're observant enough, they're going to see that it's there. They're not going to be able to get to it yet, but they are going to see it. So by the time they get over here, go across the moving platform, up these steps, they're going to see that there's this long platform here with a robot on it. And if they've seen that health, they may decide to go over there and explore and get it. And then, of course, they have to deal with this robot to do it. But if I put it here, for example, in the middle of the platform, you're too high up to see it from here, and you're down too low to see it from here. So the player would never know it's there. They'd have no incentive necessarily to go across this platform and see what was over here on the left. So I want to make sure it's visible by the player when they drop from here to give them a little incentive to come over there and check things out. You can see also these jumps are going to be really high. In particular, this one right here, you're going to need a double jump for that. So right here, I want to introduce the double jump right there. And that could actually benefit you over here on this platform. This is a high enough ceiling where you could double jump over this droid if you've already picked this up. But it's absolutely necessary to get up this climb towards the end of the level. You'd never be able to get up here without the double jump. Now I'm just going to add one last pickup to this level, and it's going to be over here to the left of this droid. I'm going to add another health pickup in there. Let me tick that up a little bit. It was down below the floor. There we go. Now this droid is a little bit different than most of the other ones. It's obviously the same image, and it has all the same behaviors and properties. But you'll notice if you go into it and check its my speed, I've reduced the speed of it quite a bit. And that's to kind of entice the player to go over on this platform and see what might be over there if they notice his speed is different. Some players like to explore, some don't, but the fact that he's a little bit different than the other ones may lead them to wondering what's over here to the left. And if they do, they'll get a bonus, and if they don't, they'll miss it. Maybe they'll come back later and check it out if they miss it the first time. That's it for the third tutorial. In the fourth tutorial, we're going to finish off Level 2 completely by adding 2 moving platforms. We're going to add some more player interactions. I'll show you how to explode the player when the player dies by using a particle effect. I'll show you how to reset the level when the player dies. And we're going to start Level 3. So make sure and come back for Episode 4.